So I'm here with Max Lugavere, who is a brilliant scientist and researcher of health and how nutrition affects the brain. So he's here to show us how the foods that we eat can help us optimize our nervous system. And he is the New York Times best-selling author of Genius Foods, and he has the podcast Genius Life, which teaches you all sorts of brilliant things about how to take care of yourself in this lifetime so you can live the most expressed life possible.
Damn.
So we're here today to really talk about the theme of the season, which is divine masculine. What does it feel like in your body when you are in your masculine?
I feel very confident. I feel very decisive. I feel brave, logical, but not to the detriment of, my more emotional self.
But first,
let's do it.
First food. All right, yeah. You said you wanted Ecstasy. This is the only water I could find in the house. I feel a little vulnerable. The actual kind of vulnerable that I have water that's $30 in my house.
I love it.
You can say what you want about me.
These privileged idiots.
I know. I've been paying a lot of attention to is this decline in testosterone. Testosterone's been going down by like 1% since 1980. What has that done to men internally?
New year, new you. You're not going to be new you at the turn of the new year. You're going to be the same you. And if you try to take this black or white dichotomous mindset about just revamping everything, the minute you fall off the wagon, you're going to feel like you've disappointed yourself.
Are you avoidant?
Yeah, I'm definitely a little avoidant. I feel like were I to meet the right person, I wouldn't be avoidant.
Your one personal sex tip for men everywhere.
Oh my God.
I'm Layla Martin. I'm your host of This Tantric Life. This podcast is for you to learn about and be able to use the incredibly powerful system of Tantra in your life. I have been teaching and studying classical and neo-Tantra for over 20 years. And when you apply that to sex, love, and relationships, as I love to do, you end up having conscious relationships, the deepest, most epic and magical sex, and the kind of intimacy that you get to be grateful for on your deathbed. And I want you to have your own magical journey in your own way that takes you from wherever you are now to the most outrageous and true and beautiful expression of sex, love, and relationships that is available to you.
I feel like all 16 of my chakras are fully aligned right now.
Yeah.
How many chakras do I have? I've got a bunch, right?
You've got 99.
99. All right. All good. Cool.
99 chakras and we're ready to go.
99 chakras and a dog ain't one. It's a cute, beautiful dog. Look at that.
So me and Max are actually here with Sem today, which is our blessing because we got started late. So Sem got home from his dog walk. Sem is a certified canine police dog who now just spends his life leisurely walking through the jungles of Los Angeles.
Wow, he's a very handsome pup.
He's a very good
very
dog.
Athletic. Yeah.
He's eating properly for his
I can
gender.
tell. I can tell.
He's the real embodiment of the divine masculine.
Love it.
So I'm here with Max Lugavere. I got to know him. I think one of his claims to fame is that he got to spend his virgin year at Burning Man partying with me at the RV next to mine.
Yeah. I mean, that was an amazing time. That was actually a really interesting moment in my life. And I was really grateful to have been at Burning Man that year. It was very special for me.
Yeah. What'd you learn about yourself and the world through being at Burning Man?
Oh my God. Well, it was there was a lot going on in my life at that moment in time where I was, on the one hand, I was sort of coming off the launch of my first book, Genius Foods, which you already mentioned. And that was a massive success. And for the first time, I was really seeing ahead of me a really impactful and fruitful career unfold. And I was also really, and still am really close with all of the people that I went to Burning Man with. So Craig and Sarah Clemens, some of my best friends on the planet. And Burning Man was a peak experience for me. It was an incredible first time experience, just awe-inspiring in every conceivable way. But then in tandem with that, it was also my mom was at the lowest of the low point in terms of her health. And actually that when I had gotten back from Burning Man, I actually had to rush back from LA after Burning Man because my mom was sent to the emergency room. And it was then that she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which led to a 3-month sort of countdown to her transition to a higher plane. And so it was like simultaneously like one of the best moments of my life and one of the worst moments of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did that portal do for you? Like losing a parent is such a huge transition.
Well, it was horrible. I mean, it was a really like the 3 months that transpired were just like, like ineffably traumatic. Like I just can't put into words, but the silver lining, if there could be such a thing, is that it's given my life meaning, and it's, and I feel like all the work that I've been doing and will continue to do is not in vain, that my mom's legacy lives on through my work, through my advocacy, through the education that I put out. And so it's bittersweet, and, we all go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel in a way that it was like a privilege to have experienced that. And I would give everything back to have my mom, of course, back in good health. But the fact that I was able to see that has given me a kind of empathy and insight into the human condition that I think like very few people have.
Because that drove so much of your work in nutrition, right? Was this desire to be able to support your mom when she was experiencing, I think it was Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yeah. So my mom was diagnosed early on, like at the age roughly 58. Yeah. She was, prescribed drugs for both Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease, and that really set me off down a path that I never would have anticipated growing up, and even in my post college years, I decided to. It wasn't even a conscious decision, really, but I dedicated myself at that point to understanding why this happened to my mom, what could be done to prevent it from happening to myself and others that I care about. And then the more I would learn, the more I would share. Mm-hmm. And through the process of sharing, you also learn, right? Like they say, like the best way to learn is to teach. And so I would just start sharing with no aspiration of any kind of like, career trajectory, anything like that. But I started to see the more I would share, the more people would gravitate to my work and would listen to what I had to say. And these weren't just like social media randos. These were like actual like medical doctors, like experts in the field who were really interested in the insights that I had to offer, from the caregiving perspective, from the patient perspective, and also ultimately from like the scientific perspective, which was a real eye opener, So I just kept going down that path, and I had the opportunity to write a book, which I did. And the book ended up becoming really successful. And then I launched a podcast in 2018 called The Genius Life, which has also become really successful. And success means something different to every person. But for me, it means like it's the impact that I feel like my work is having for people. And so, just very grateful that the trauma and the tragedy that ultimately was the latter end of my mom's life was not in vain.
Yeah, we had interesting parallels because in 2017, my stepfather, who raised me since I was 1, was passing away from cancer, and I was taking care of him in home hospice. And he actually passed away. So Burning Man runs from Sunday to Sunday, usually like late August, early September. And I was actually trying to get to Austin because that's where my parents lived at the time, on the Sunday that Burning Man started. And so I was just going to miss Burning Man and be with my dad because I'd been flying back and forth from LA and taking care of him. And the hurricane, I think it was Ian, but I don't remember now which hurricane it was like right over Austin. And so we kept trying to land. I took different flights, and finally we literally landed in the hurricane.
Wow.
And the flight attendants were like, oh, I can't believe the pilots even tried to land. And thank God they did, because I drove straight home, and my dad had really gone downhill very fast, faster than we anticipated. And my mom had said she loved him so deeply. They had 30 years of this beautiful marriage. She was like, I don't necessarily need to be there the moment he passed. She was with him like every single moment. And I got there, and it's like raining and pouring. My sister and my mom leave the room, and my dad is motionless. He's barely breathing. And I heard it was this inner voice from him saying, take it from me, take it from me. And I sat there and I was like, what? And I was like, oh, give it to me. Like, give me everything you got. And I started feeling all of this energy and it started transmuting through me. And it like started really, really thick and heavy. And it went to brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter gold. And his soul started lifting up and the whole room flashed at bright gold right at the moment he took his last breath.
Wow.
And my mom came into the room and she was like, and she noticed and she ran into his arms and she said, it's so peaceful in here. Mm. And she told me later that the whole day he'd been tossing and turning and he was saying, take it from me and let me in.
Wow.
So it was so powerful. And so I really resonated because I felt like if there was one thing that I could give my family from being a tantrika for almost 20 years, it would be a conscious death, right? To be able to support that process, that passing. And I then flew to Burning Man that Wednesday and arrived. And the rest of that Burning Man was this grieving process, this death ceremony of celebrating life as you do through the portal of death. Mm. And it was so interesting to me that you were in that same process 2 years later. And all of your work was in some ways a culmination of trying to give the biggest gift to your family. And then you just give it to whoever wants it, you know?
Yeah. You offer it up to the universe.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would have felt going into that experience like after the fact. You know, I'm very grateful that I got to experience it. And it's kind of eerie and divinely perhaps inspired that I went just before.
Yeah.
That whole experience. Because it, in a way, you know, it like, it bookended a version of my life that, that transitioned almost immediately afterwards to another version of my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, so there was like before everything that went down with my mom and then after. And so to have Burning Man sort of, you know, as like a, you know, artifact memorializing that transition for me.
Yeah.
Very odd. And, you know, I've never really thought about it in that way, but yeah, super, super interesting. And yeah, what a journey.
Well, people who haven't been think of it as just a giant party. So they're like, how was that a ceremony? But I always like to say, because I've been to Burning Man first time since 2005, that Burning Man is one of the world's most potent ceremonies dressed up like a party.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean,
my dog just farted too. Yeah. Literally the like most horrific smell.
No, man, I was wondering if that was like if there's like something in my shoe because I literally just put my shoe up.
It's definitely a Belgian Malinois fart.
Oh man, it's all good. It's all good. Happens to the best of us, you know.
So we're here today to really talk about the theme of the season, which is divine masculine. And do you resonate with that term? Do you have a definition of what divine masculine is for you?
I don't know what is meant by the divine aspect of it necessarily, but I definitely resonate with masculinity, and I'm a big fan of masculinity. And, you know, I feel like there's this weird thing now in society, this stigma almost, you could say, that's been placed on masculinity, almost as if all masculinity is toxic, which I completely disagree with. And I personally very, very much connect to masculinity. I feel that I'm very much in my masculine.
Yeah.
And it's like a different kind of masculine than I think what is typically portrayed because, you know, I'm not a big sports person or anything like that. But in general, yeah, I'm a huge fan of masculinity and that sort of energy and, you know, all the sort of archetypal traits and characteristics that roll with it. So it resonates with me.
Yeah, this whole season is basically for women listening or people of any gender to be able to fall in love with the truth of what men are. Because I totally agree with you that as a society, we've lost sight of that. And like men are fucking magnificent. And I think when we think of masculinity, sometimes we're conflating an expression of trauma that happened for a long time. But the actual like warrior, protector, strength, power of men is so beautiful. And the season's also for men to be able to not only fall in love with that part of themselves, but to find it, because a lot of men have either lost it or they are like now afraid of the societal shame around it. And it's like, where and how can men find their way back into their true power?
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
It's important.
Totally. And it sounds like you've done it in your own way. I'm curious, what has helped you and supported you to find that in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I'm dedicated to I guess development, growth, perennial growth mindset that I've had for as long as I can remember, pretty much. Like I feel like I've always been trending. I've always aspired to at least trend towards the most actualized version of myself.
Yeah.
Whether it be through whether it manifests in my physicality, in how I feel, my my mindset, how I show up in the world, how I treat others. And so, so I mean, like, for me, it's, and then also like in terms of my own way in which I guess show up and respond to the world, like it's, I think like masculinity tends to be very like decisive, and I've at times struggled with being decisive, I tend to get like analysis paralysis quite often. And so for me, like it's, one of the things that I've like tried to do is like, just be more decisive, like take decisive action in my life and in all areas of my life. Vulnerability. I think like there are different like versions of vulnerability. Like being vulnerable as a woman, I think means something different than what it means to be vulnerable as a man. Yeah. And I think we should embrace that difference. I've struggled, in the well, I wouldn't say struggled. I wasn't very vulnerable in the past, and I don't really think that there was anything, wrong with that necessarily. But it's like you keep yourself closed off, and so I've been like kind of dabbling with, being what it means and exploring and kind of feeling out the boundaries of like what it means to be like more vulnerable.
And what do you get from that when you're more vulnerable?
Well, it's just like a more honest experience of yourself and the way others receive you.
Yeah.
And I think I've succeeded in many ways. Like I've always kind of been an open book.
Yeah.
So that is like where I guess perhaps I would have thought that I, have been vulnerable like my whole life. I kind of thought vulnerability was just like talking about stuff that other people don't necessarily volunteer right away. But yeah, like being open about your feelings and your struggles and all that stuff, and being honest with other people, and leaning into situations where you might be faced with rejection, like that potential is there. I think that's, putting yourself in vulnerable positions like that. Like that's something that like I struggle with rejection. And so, yeah, it's all been like a process, but I feel like I feel like in that regard, with regard to vulnerability, I'm like the best I've ever been, the most open I feel like I've ever been.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I can resonate with that a lot, that I always thought I was super vulnerable because I'll tell you anything.
Yeah.
Like you can ask me anything. I'm at parties. I'm like talking about like sex and crazy like spirituality, and then money, which people really don't want to talk about money. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about money. Everyone's like, oh my God. But it's like a mental vulnerability, almost like a sharing of stories, a sharing of like a transparency.
Yeah. Like oversharing doesn't mean you're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like there are oversharers they're not necessarily vulnerable people, they're just like oversharers,
Totally.
And so I think like once I had that realization, I was like, oh, so vulnerability isn't just about sharing embarrassing things about yourself.
Yeah.
It's like about letting others in,
Yes.
and sometimes like the way that looks is a lot more subtle than like the obvious, like, sharing about like a sexual experience or whatever,
Totally.
So,
What does it feel like in your body when you are in your masculine?
Oh man. I feel very confident when I'm in my masculine. I feel very decisive when I'm in my masculine. I feel um I feel brave.
Yeah.
I feel logical.
Yeah.
But not to the detriment of, my more emotional self. Um I feel a healthy degree of stoicism, but not to the degree of being detached.
Mm.
I think like I think what that implies is like I have resilient, I think, is like a very masculine trait.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I like, I've always had like role models and like I'm somebody who's like, whether it's like movies or through music, like I'm very much I draw inspiration from whether it's like fictional characters or artists that I love. Like I'm like a sponge. And so, throughout my life I've seen, portrayals, I guess, of like masculinity or um and yeah, masculinity, uh people that I look up to intellectually or what have you. And I feel like yeah, I'm just like a sponge. I'm very open to receiving inspiration from other people
Yeah.
and entities. I feel like many people these days, like many people, and even some of my closest friends are they kind of go about the world as NPCs.
Mm.
Non-player characters, essentially like automatons.
I have no idea what that is.
An automaton is basically like a robot. It's like
Okay.
somebody.
Okay.
It's like it's an entity that responds to stimuli based on like a pre-programmed script.
Okay.
Um, and so like yeah, a lot of people I feel like are in many ways, not maybe necessarily not always, but are they kind of like they have like these rote responses to various stimuli. They hold on very tightly to their preferences and the way that they were 15 years ago, their style perhaps 15 years ago or something. And there's like I think it's like very important and perhaps even a masculine trait, I don't know, to always be willing to challenge your assumptions about things, your preferences, your behaviors. Yeah. I'm always like reflecting and doing an inventory of any like behaviors and tics that I have that might be like rote, pre-programmed, because I feel like those are very typical of like these NPCs. An NPC, by the way, is a term borrowed from video games.
Yeah.
So you're like a main character in the video game if you're the player.
Got it.
But the NPCs, the non-player characters, are the characters that are kind of like off to the side, that are programmed in.
Okay.
That are just kind of like doing what they're programmed to do.
Yeah. You want to be the main character.
You want to be the main character.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very masculine.
I want to share with you all about Play. So these are our sexy supplements from our brand new company, Mood. And these are custom formulations designed to get you results in your nervous system from daily use. So you take Play every single day. And what it is designed to do, we worked with a team of all female scientists, is to get you out of your head and into the pleasure of your body. So if you know the feeling of like working all day long, I know this feeling, getting off and being like, Layla, do yoga. Layla, make out with your partner. Layla, like do something, go be in nature. And as I'm just like scrolling on Instagram, one of the things that was so helpful that I learned was that it can take up to 2 hours to shift from sympathetic state, go, into a deep parasympathetic relaxation where you would actually like want to make out with someone. So this formulation is designed to help you make that switch. It does it by giving your body a natural high and a feeling of deep pleasure. It uses things like cacao flavonoids, sacred White Lotus, Mucuna pruriens, which helps support your dopaminergic system, which increases your desire to do things, to engage with the world. And it even has this amazing plant called Kana, which is a heart opener. So when you feel good in your body, rushes of pleasure, when you feel a heart opening, you want to connect, you want to be more intimate. So as you take this over time, it's going to help you want more sex. It's going to help you be more playful in your life. It's going to help you do more awesome things. I personally love taking this formula before the gym. I love taking it before yoga, and I absolutely love taking it before making love. You can combine it with Sex Magic, our other incredible product. You can find out more over at shopmood.com. We've got a special discount code for you as a listener of this podcast. It is this Tantric Life 15. This Tantric Life 15. You pop it in at checkout in the discount code section. It'll give you 15% off your first order. So you can head over to shopmood.com, get yourself some play, and it comes in both supplements, so just capsules you can pop every day, and this beautiful velvet chocolatey flavor that I like to mix into almond milk and have in the afternoon as a kind of lovely, luscious pick-me-up. Well, I have this theory that like so many people in the world right now are mad at men. I think some men are like mad at themselves or slightly ashamed, but the world is craving actual masculinity. Like healthy integrated masculinity is like women who like sleep with and relate with men are like starved for it. Men are starved for it in themselves.
Yeah.
So this like reclamation of it is so essential. And to strip away what was trauma from our idea of what is masculine. And I love what you said, even though you're not sure about the divine part, but we could help you with that.
Yeah, I'm down.
But the masculine part, I really feel it's like, instead of it being this like list of traits, it's like, who am I when I'm whole?
Yeah.
Like when I feel whole, right? Like you said, you did all this personal development.
Yeah.
Right. And you it's like connection to self, right? That's sort of how I feel about femininity. It's like, it's not like it's these traits that I aspire to. It's more like when I get whole inside of myself and I'm actually healthy and integrated, what is it that I express? And like femininity flows out of that. And so to me, it's like, let's support people to get whole again, and then let them find what works for, like what flavor of masculine or feminine or what mix of it really works for them, which I love. And we're going to get slightly high on my new supplement line first. And then I would love to talk to you specifically about what is happening for men with health and wellness, because it's so hard to be in your divine masculine and in your masculine power if your nervous system isn't functioning properly, if you're not healthy. And especially something that I've been paying a lot of attention to is this decline in testosterone. That testosterone's been going down by like 1% since 1980.
Wow. Yeah.
Every single year. So 1% every year since 1980. So like, what has that done to men internally? And what is their self-experience like? What is their health like? So I know we're going to be talking about some theories because it's not super well studied, but I'd love to get your perspective on like, what can men do to be in optimum nutrition and health? But first,
let's do
first mood. All right. Yeah. You said you wanted ecstasy.
Let's do it.
Clean energy and body high.
I'm down. Yeah. There's some tribulus in there, which I think has a role to play in boosting T, or I don't know. I've heard.
It does. It's a desert flower here in Los Angeles.
Wow.
It's like those cone-shaped yellow ones, and they boost testosterone.
Amazing. Yeah, my friend Crosby's a big fan, and like he takes it, and he's a pretty jacked dude. So
nature's incredible. So this is clean energy. It gives you a body high. Can I put a little bit of witchcraft in it for you?
Sure.
All right. All right. You can take 4. I got you.
Amazing.
The world's most expensive water.
What is it? Whoa, what is this?
Have you tried a 4-ounce?
No.
Okay.
Maybe I've seen it. It's expensive.
Well, okay.
Expensive?
This is a moment. This is the only water I could find in the house that wasn't a green bottle right now because we have a delivered water shortage. And my friends used to make fun of me. I feel a little vulnerable.
I like it. Go there.
The actual kind of vulnerable that I have water that's $30 in my house.
I love it.
You can say what you want about me. And my friends made me blind taste test this against the LA tap water. And I chose the LA tap water.
No.
But I was like, guys, it's not about the fucking tap. It's not about the taste. It's about like the CCM 253 or whatever that's like in the fucking water.
Let's go there.
So anyway. There you go.
What do you want me to do? Like take a swig out of the bottle?
Take a swig out of the bottle.
All right, let's do this.
I mean, we could be civilized and put it in the scope.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. All right, I'm going to take sensuality.
It tastes really good.
and sex magic.
I'm into it. I spilled some of this very expensive water on my t-shirt. I feel bad about that.
I'm like,
but
you should not feel bad about that. You should feel super proud.
Yeah.
It's like a water blessing.
Yeah, it's like a baptism of sorts, like an Erewhon baptism.
Yes. This is going to be the thing that like shoots off Instagram on this episode. People are going to be like, $30 water from like Erewhon.
These privileged idiots.
I know. Yep, you said it. All right.
Yep. There you go.
Sensuality's got like Damiana in it. It's like relaxing and elevating at the same time. And sex magic you usually take before sex, but I take it during podcasts because let's go.
Let's go. Let's freaking go. I'm in. I'm in the pocket.
You're in the pocket?
Yeah.
Do you want sex magic?
What is sex magic?
Sex magic, it's like, well, here, it's got like L-arginine. Is that how you say it?
Arginine.
Arginine. Yeah. Panax, ginseng, ginger, shilajit, macunapuri, sistanche, evening primrose, beet, saffron, and huperzine A.
What do these do? Does this give you?
It gives you like buzzy feelings.
Better erections or what?
Well, you know what's interesting? We didn't formulate it for that, but it does seem to work that way. Aaron Alexander said that he had a giant erection for his entire podcast after I gave it to him. But I'm not necessarily trying to give you an erection for the podcast.
Yeah, no.
It's just...
I think I'm pretty good in that department. Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
All right.
But
so speaking of the plunging testosterone levels of US males.
Yes. It's very weird. I actually don't have a single male friend that hasn't suffered low T.
Wow.
Recently. Yeah.
Wow.
Almost every guy that I know has had like low testosterone.
And how are they finding out about that? Are they going and getting tested?
Yeah, it's typical,
okay.
It's like a typical, blood panel that you would get from a physician at this point. Like most of my friends are now in their like mid to late 30s to early 40s.
Yeah.
And so, most of my friends have had like low testosterone, which is very interesting because mine is like pretty high.
Yeah.
But, I guess it's like a testament to just practicing what I preach.
Totally. So what do you think men can do about that then from a nutritional standpoint, from a self-care standpoint?
Yeah. Well, I think definitely integrating healthful fats into one's diet, like not doing the low fat diet, which I know decades ago was probably more in vogue, but I think a lot of people, especially people on plant-based diets, I know many people I know a few people who are on plant-based diets, but like this more fringe version where it's like almost like a fat-free version of the plant-based diet. Yeah. That is not ideal from the standpoint of hormonal health. Studies show that actually fat-free diet, like low-fat diets, are associated with lower testosterone. Also, just like low calorie diets in general. In LA, a lot of people are on like very calorie restricted diets because they just want to look better.
Yeah.
And I think there's a time and place to do like a cut. I've recently done one myself actually, but when you sustain that over the long term, that can lead to reduced testosterone as well. Because that means like you're sending the signal to your body that food is scarce. So your body's not going to pump out hormones that are like, getting you amped up to procreate in a time of like food scarcity. And that's essentially the signal that you're sending your body. High sugar foods, sugary, ultra processed diets are associated with lower testosterone. There have been studies that have shown that one single high sugar bolus can drop testosterone by about 25%. And that sustains for a couple of hours afterwards. I believe about 2 hours afterwards. We don't typically eat in one sitting 75 grams of sugar, which is what they used in that study. It was part of what's called an oral glucose tolerance test. But typically your average adult today consumes 75 grams of added sugar every single day. So
wow.
Yeah.
So your typical adult is consuming the same amount of sugar that tanked testosterone by 25% in a diet. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you're eating a healthful diet. I would say not a vegan or plant-based diet, like integrate healthful, sources of animal fat, animal protein in general, wherever you choose to get your protein is very helpful in so far as it helps to sustain and grow ultimately your skeletal muscle. Yeah. Which can optimize testosterone levels. And by the way, testosterone is important for women too. So for any, I don't want to alienate any women who are listening. Mm-hmm. Women have testosterone and it's very important for women as well. Totally. They have about 1/10 the testosterone as men, but it plays an important role in libido, mood, well-being, body composition, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So super, super important. And yeah, making sure that you're not chronically stressed, like all the things that are generally good for health.
Yeah.
We know that can help support optimal sex hormone levels.
Totally. Because if you don't have optimum testosterone, you're not going to have healthy sex drive.
Yeah. I mean, testosterone, it's important. It's like the primary male sex hormone. That's like, that motivates you, if nothing else, to set goals and then ultimately work to achieve them.
Yeah.
And for most guys, those goals are procuring a mate, procuring food, various body goals, athletic performance. So yeah, testosterone is crucially important. And my testosterone was like, I did labs recently, and my testosterone was like 1150, which is pretty high at the high end of the normal range. And my free testosterone was also, it was not as high as my T. Free testosterone is the active testosterone that actually can act on tissues. And I actually found that my sex hormone, so your testosterone is produced in the testes for men primarily. And sex hormone binding globulin is a compound produced in the liver that basically binds testosterone. And when it breaks free, or when the testosterone breaks free, then it's free testosterone. And that's thought to be the active testosterone. And so my sex hormone binding globulin was like slightly elevated. And so I started taking, if you have low free T, you can take things like zinc. You want to do this like under the guidance of a physician, but zinc can help reduce sex hormone binding globulin and boost free T. Boron is a really cool micronutrient that has also been shown to reduce sex hormone binding globulin. So basically, it like frees up your testosterone, basically.
Yeah.
And activates it, for lack of a better term. So yeah, there's like definitely a lot that you can do to optimize your T levels. Also, another big issue, I think, which might explain, I mean, our diets have become increasingly shitty over time, which might explain this decline that you've alluded to. But also, aside from like what we're actually consuming, there are, our ever increasing exposure to environmental pollutants that act like endocrine disruptors. So whether it's bisphenol A or phthalates, or
even
parabens,
microplastics.
Yeah, microplastics, things like that.
Yeah.
Those also can impact the way our hormones function. They're called endocrine disruptors after all. And so for men, I think reducing your exposure to plastic, like using plastic less, washing your hands after touching store register receipts is a big one, or not touching them altogether, because those tend to be coated with BPA.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
What else is like coated with BPA that you want to like cleanse yourself after? Yeah,
you definitely want to avoid most store register receipts. The primary ones are the heat sensitive ones, which you can tell they're heat sensitive if you drag your fingernail across them. You can like basically write with your fingernail. You know, so those are the ones that they're like coated with bisphenol A.
Okay.
BPA tends to be in like plastic bottles, but even plastic bottles that are labeled BPA free, they've now started to remove BPA from plastics and replace BPA with BPS or BPF. So other bisphenols that actually have like less research on them, but might act the same, if not, have an even stronger effect in the body. So you want to avoid like plastic as best as you can.
Totally. And as you're saying, this is for women as well, right? Because plastic is an endocrine disruptor.
Yeah.
And it not only messes with your estrogen, but it also messes with your testosterone, which is very important for women as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So you want to avoid that stuff like parabens. Like some online on social media might say, oh, well, the dose makes the poison and, like yada, yada, yada. But with the pernicious thing about endocrine disruptors, like the thing that's like really, tricky about them, which actually might like make that rule not apply for endocrine disruptors, is that they have what's called like low dose effect. So you might see like a really dangerous toxic effect at a certain dose, and then you might see like no effect, underneath that dose, but then in very low doses, you might see a completely different effect. So it's like more, so as opposed to like a linear curve, you might see more of like a U-shaped curve. And so that's the issue with endocrine disruptors that makes them really hard to study. And yeah, and also like just the overall burden of our exposures today is so high, whether it's like the shitty food that we're eating, or the fact that I was just reading a statistic today that came out from the CDC that 25% of adults are completely sedentary, like zero physical activity, like a quarter of the population. So there's that. Shitty diets, they are just like the insidious exposure that we all have to these endocrine, environmental pollutants. So yeah, it's just like a lot, it's in aggregate, it's a lot for our bodies to contend with. So the more like, I guess, naturally you can live, like the better,
Right. And I think people have chalked up like, I forget who said it recently. It was, the director, maybe the director of Jurassic Park, I can't remember, who blamed testosterone for like poor behavior and was basically like we should eradicate it. I'm not sure that was it, but I'll look it up.
Interesting.
And like there was this whole like kind of thing around it of like testosterone is like, it's been wrong with the planet for like a few thousand years or whatever. And it's like when we look at men who are kind of, let's say, the examples of what low testosterone would look like, right? Like, I don't want to work out. I have very low motivation. I don't have a sex drive, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing about that feels like, wow, that's what we want for the future of men. That's fucking sexy.
Yeah.
And what I think we're forgetting now is like men with testosterone who have done their work, who are warriors, who are thoughtful, compassionate beings, who actually it's a lot of men like that. That is the absolute sexiest. So I feel like we're forgetting like how beautiful and sexy and amazing testosterone actually is. Another dog fart.
Oh no, it hasn't wafted over this way yet, but
it was a small one this time.
Oh God.
That might have been a soundbite, an Instagram soundbite, and the dog fart ruined it.
I don't have a dog, and I don't know if I would ever be able to get used to that. Like, I have a cat who, as far as I know, cats never fart.
Yeah.
Which has made me, in a way, along with other things, other aspects, a bit of a cat guy, I suppose. But I guess there's probably like
the depth of love and affection that you generate for them overcomes the horrific nature of their farts.
Horrific nature of the dog fart.
Yeah.
I suppose.
And you get used to that moment where you're like sharing with someone and like you both smell the dog fart at the same time and you both like just smell. Yeah. And it's like a moment of being like, was that you or you? And then you're like, oh, thank God it was the dog, I know.
I know. Well, I guess like if you're in a coupleship, like if you're coupled, and having a dog is a good way to like kind of like offset the blame or whatever. Like you just blame the dog. I don't know.
Except you get used to, you're like the human fart is like 1/10 as bad as the dog fart. So it's like you can't really offload the human fart on the dog because it's just not bad enough to be the dog.
Human farts are different.
Yeah.
They're very different. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. But why, if you're feeding a dog, I mean, we're getting off topic, but I'm genuinely interested. If you feed a dog like a healthful diet, like they shouldn't be super gassy, right?
Yo. This dog has like one of the best lives ever. He eats pure organic human grade dog food. He also has like the most expensive freaking Sunday dog foods. Again, all the things on Instagram. Yeah. The dog eats really well. And like, he eats, he ate a skull in the forest the other day.
Jesus.
It was just, and then like he found an old deer carcass that I could not get him out of. He eats like, I don't even know where he finds this stuff. So much rope. I'm like, bro, we don't even have rope just lying around the house. Where'd you even find that? He ate a soccer ball that he stole from a child in the neighborhood yesterday. Damn. So it's like, I don't know if how sometimes when people eat a bunch of salad, they get a bit gassy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's what's going on or it's the child's soccer ball or it's the random rope that he finds.
That stuff's not going to sit well. If I ate a soccer ball, I'd be in pain. But
So, okay. So here's I've got like a few last questions, which is just like for men you must work with in nutrition a lot about mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for men are like, okay, I know the things to do to like build testosterone to be healthy, but I'm having a hard time doing them. Yeah. What kind of stuff do you recommend?
I think you have to like not try to bite off more than you can chew and just try to instill one habit at a time.
Yeah.
Whether it is purging your house of plastics or upgrading the meat quality in your home or getting rid of some of the ultra processed grain products or even just like making a habit of reading nutrition facts labels and reading ingredients lists to be able to identify where there's added sugar, right? Because we already talked about the role that added sugar can potentially play in this. I think you want to try to institute one habit at a time. And once that becomes a habit, then that allows you to habit stack, which is what James Clear talks about, I believe, in, Atomic Habits, which is like, you can't just like try to do everything at once. It's the reason why that whole New Year's resolution phenomena, like new year, new you, you're not going to be new you at the turn of the new year. You're going to be the same you. And if you try to take this black or white dichotomous mindset about like just revamping everything, the minute you fall off the wagon, you're going to feel like you've disappointed yourself and you're going to feel like a moral failure. It's much easier to just to do one habit at a time. For example, with my life, I've got most things optimized, but I generally wasn't like a big, I wasn't getting enough like steps in. I'm not a big cardio fan, but I think like the benefits of walking are irrefutable. Like walking is like almost magic. It's so good for you. And so I was already going to the gym. I was doing lots of resistance training. And because I already had that habit in place, it's very easy for me to go to the gym because I love it. I generally love lifting weights. I easily was able to tack on to almost every workout, at least, a 5 to 10 to 15 minute bout of walking on the treadmill. So I've essentially habit stacked this additional habit onto something that I was already doing.
Yeah.
Everybody has a morning routine.
Yeah.
Everybody has a pre-bed routine. Everybody has a pre-workout routine. Everybody has a post-workout routine. Everybody has a post-lunch routine. Like, so if you can find ways to stack these healthy things like into aspects of your day that are already kind of like scheduled, then they're going to be easier to adhere to. And adherence ultimately over the long term is really like the key metric of success, really,
Yeah. Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
I love running, but I hate walking.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
I will crush a treadmill. Like,
Wow.
I love to like move fast, but walking has always been like the bane of my existence.
That's
but I've been working at it. Like
Wow.
me and him, we get out into that forest and I'm like, all right, Layla. And I've come so far. Let's say if before my like hatred for walking was like a 9 out of 10, like now it's like a 5 or 6 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, power to you. I mean, that's amazing because most people it's the inverse,
Yeah.
I think like walking, running is definitely great. Like, so people have different bodies. Like, some people really enjoy it. I'll do it. I'll force myself to do it sometimes.
Yeah.
But I generally like here's the thing, like the benefit to agony ratio for most people of just walking is it's almost like a magic ratio. It's like you get so much benefit for such a low proportion of agony.
Yeah.
Whereas like with running for most people, there's great benefit, but the agony quotient is way higher. So it just makes that ratio a lot smaller. The bang for the buck that you get with walking is like through the roof. It like helps to push fresh blood all around your body. It burns fat. It, it's just incredible. Like you're burning calories. There's so many aspects. When you sweat, you're obviously purging toxins. It's great for lowering blood sugar. It's great for lowering triglycerides in your blood, which is fat in your blood, essentially. It's amazing for your cardiovascular system. It helps with lymphatic flow, which is like important for immune function. So there's like all these like benefits to it. And a lot of people, I think they get on the treadmill thinking that like you have to run to get any benefit. You don't. I mean,
you just got to move.
Yeah, you just got to move. You just got to move.
And we were built to walk all the time. Like that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, totally. And it's like sustainable because again, at the end of the day, like, you might start a running habit that lasts you, a couple months.
Yeah.
Like for me, for a couple months, I was like a couple times a week, I was like running a mile on the treadmill and I really enjoyed it. Yeah. But it only lasted a couple months. Walking is something that I'm going to be able to do for the rest of my life, So I don't know.
And then, all right, nutrition for sex. What can we do to be better lovers?
Oh, man. Well, nitric oxide, I think, is really important when it comes to sex, like promoting blood flow. And so there's actually, I mean, generally, you want to just for cardiovascular health in general, consume fruits and vegetables that are rich in nitrates. So like beets are kind of the most well-known example of a nitrate-rich food. But
that's fascinating because in Beltane, which is the European fertility festival that happens around springtime, like so the beginning of May, they actually will. I mean, I think originally it was menstrual blood, but whatever. They'll smear beet juice all over themselves.
Whoa, interesting. Yeah.
And I learned recently that one of the reasons why goats are like sacrificial animals is because they eat juniper berries. So their blood would have probably been psychedelic.
Whoa. That's super interesting. The things you learn, man. Goat blood. Who knew? Yeah. So beets, when you chew beets, you're creating nitric oxide, or you're supporting your nitric oxide pathway, which helps to boost blood flow.
You know what sex magic is colored with?
What? Beet? Oh, amazing.
Yeah, baby.
Well, and you also have arginine in there. So arginine is actually helps to support that pathway as well. So does citrulline, which is found in watermelon, especially like watermelon rind. But you can find citrulline in a lot of like pre-workout supplements, because that same boost in nitric oxide and blood flow helps to support a pump in the gym. So you could essentially take like a pre-workout before sex and probably, experience some kind of benefit. Yeah. So like supporting that nitric oxide pathway, I think generally is like good, and your cardiovascular system in general, because erectile dysfunction is one of the first, when you have like dysfunction with your endothelial system, right? Like you'll see erectile dysfunction way before any other clinical signs of cardiovascular disease.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you are, you're taking care of your heart. Physical exercise, all these things are all really important when it comes to like setting you up to bat when that moment finally comes. Yeah. Yeah. Important.
Team, this is a legit moment because I'm super tired. I've been working all day long. This is the last ad of the day. I got to tell you about sensuality. And this is exactly what we made Mood for. This is why we made this supplement company, because I'm tired and I want something to support me. So because I'm overwhelmed, because I've worked all day long, there's a part of me that like doesn't want to see my partner right now. Like I don't even want to be touched. I want everyone to leave me alone. I want to get lost in some Instagram rabbit hole, looking at people that make me feel bad about myself and not come back until tomorrow. But what I really, really want actually is like a super sexy makeout, a luscious bubble bath, some sort of self-care. I want to do yoga. I want to have an amazing, yummy dinner. I want to feel connected to my body. I want to get a massage from him. That's what sensuality is for. It is for the person and woman who gives and gives and gives all day long, and you've just got nothing left to give in the evenings when you want to have time for yourself, when you want to connect, when you want to be intimate, when you want to do self-care. So sensuality is just packed with ingredients that both calm your system but keep you delightfully, erotically, and sensually activated. So it's not gonna put you to sleep, but with things like L-theanine and lemon balm and magnesium, it helps calm you. And then it has these amazing ingredients like damiana, ashwagandha, katuaba, passion flower that actually give you that lift into a kind of dreamy, seductive, shimmery state. So I love taking sensuality before bubble baths. I love taking sensuality before getting a massage from my partner or a professional. I love taking sensuality when I want to relax into the evening, but I want to do something magical like a ritual by candlelight. I'm not ready to go to sleep. This is an amazing product, and we are giving you a discount for following along with this Tantric Life. So you can use the discount code ThisTantricLife15. It'll give you 15% off your first purchase over at shopmood.com. So if you want to check out these products, get yourself some sensual activation, head on over to shopmood.com. And my favorite way to do ecstatic dance and yoga is actually to combine sensuality and sex magic, our other incredible product over at Mood, together. And it gives you this very like floaty, dreamy, transcendental state. All right, we're going to take a left turn. What is your highest desire for yourself in relationship? This is what we've talked about at parties. When I feel like whenever we're at parties together, I'm always like, Max, where are you at with your relationships?
Oh, God. It's a disaster.
And I was like, you got to call that girl back or like text her back.
Yeah, I know. You're always giving me like the best advice, and I never listen to it. And that's I'm doing my best. I guess like I have like commitment issues that I'm trying to work through.
Yeah. Are you avoidant?
Yeah, I'm definitely a little avoidant.
I feel like I've basically just been interviewing avoidant men for this entire season.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because I'm anxious. So
I feel like were I to meet the right person, I wouldn't be avoidant.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel like I have a specific type and there's like a specific persona that I like. And I just haven't like, I interact with and I meet and I form relationships with like wonderful women on a fairly regular basis, but, yeah, I'm just not, I have like there's like a mold that's been set, and it's like, I have like a very specific like archetype and, yeah. And I have that avoidant attachment style. It's just difficult for me to attach. And like, yeah. So I've been working on it in therapy. That's part of like the journey for me, like the past 2 years. I feel like I've graduated in a way. She actually told me that we could take a break, but I saw a therapist very consistently for about a year and a half, and read a bunch of books. And this coincided in my life with like the end of a relationship that I had in my life for a very long time, and so it's been part of this everything that I've said so far, like kind of all has to do with the fact that I'm still kind of in the wake of that, which has been really difficult to move on from, but yeah, it's a journey.
Can I offer you a perspective on the fact that when you meet the right person, the woman, that your avoidant tendencies will go away? I would imagine, and what I've seen is that when you find a love that big, your avoidant tendencies will kick the fuck up, but you'll be willing to move through them for the person who's worth it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because we actually, all of our attachment wounds get even more triggered by the person who feels most like love to us. Because the whole avoidant wound mechanism is love doesn't feel safe. I'm not safe to it. I can't exist, or I can't be whole, or I can't be in my truth if I'm bonded and in love and in partnership. And so when the person comes along who is partnership and love and bonding for you, the avoidance will likely flare up pretty intensely, but the love for that person and the desire and the vision of your partnership will make you want to do it anyways.
Interesting. I feel like you're probably right. And I could have used that insight with my previous relationship, because the avoidant attachment, I love this person, but the avoidant attachment would flare up, particularly at the end when shit was starting to get real. And she was like, you got to shit or get off the pot, essentially, in this relationship. And there was a lot of growth that we both needed to do. So it was not meant to be, but yeah, I definitely like had the avoidant thing all the time with her. And yeah, so, but at least now I'll be able to recognize that, I'll be able to recognize, like, cause I do recognize it now. I recognize it like when I'm like with people that I know when I know there's not a fit necessarily, or that I just like, I feel that avoidant attachment come up. But I suppose when I meet the right person or something, like I'll have more of that, like there'll be more of that polarity, like, because right now I feel like it's often just like I want to spend some time and, have intimacy or whatever, but then I want to like pull the escape cord, Yeah. I'm guessing that at some point there's going to be somebody who like I don't immediately want to, that I want to actually like spend more time with, I don't know. I'm like, I'm like definitely very like avoidant, and but whatever. It's like I'm working through it, and it's like it's functional for me. And
well, I'm cheering you on. Every time I'm like, come on.
This is what I tell myself. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And like part of it, I mean, Annie Lala really helped me with this so much, right? Because like I've become far more secure, but I'm like anxious stage fucking 5, right? So, I mean, in some ways I understand avoidance because you're like the opposite of me. And in that, Annie was like, also, you know, anxious people are just learning that they're love.
Yeah.
Right. Because the reason that I want to attach so hard is because I forgot that I'm love. And so I feel like it could ever be taken away from me. And avoidant people are just learning that love is safe, you know, because if you knew that it was safe to love and bond and be in partnership, there wouldn't be so much resistance to it.
Yeah.
It would just be safe. So it's like we're all on this like journey to be able to feel that the intimacy that we crave is okay in our nervous systems.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I feel, for me, this is the avoidant perspective. Like I do feel like I don't feel unsafe. I just like would, after a certain point, would always rather be alone. You know, like always. Like, yeah. And so, but that wasn't the case with like one person in my life. So yeah. So trying to like figure that out or find the person that I actually like, the desire to hang out with this person is like greater than my desire to be alone.
Yeah. At least some of the time. Like you're always going to want to be alone some of the time, but like that desire to persist and like really go deep in the intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I think we're going to have a flood of requests in the inbox.
I don't know, maybe.
Women being like, I want to give it a try with Max. I want to see if I could be the one that he wants to stay with after our passionate lovemaking. It's
like, what was that? There was a movie like it's like King Arthur, the sword and the stone. Like the guy is like, who's going to be the one that's like able to pull the sword out of the stone? But this is like kind of like a reverse, you know?
And it's every anxious woman's dream, right? Like my current partner, he is also very, very avoidant. Like it's the anxious fantasy that like you're going to be the one that he's willing to overcome his avoidance for. You know,
excited.
You're just like, I'm winning. And then sometimes you're like, why don't I just find a secure man? You know.
I get it. Well, I'm pumped. I'm pumped for the DMs.
All right. And last question. Dog fart.
Oh, no.
All right. Do you feel the ecstasy? Honest.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel open.
Yeah.
Vulnerable. Definitely.
Now that we've plied you with legal drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, these are dope. And I love the name Mood. Wow.
Thank you.
So cool.
Okay. And then last question. Your one personal sex tip for men everywhere.
Oh my God. Communicate. Communicate. Yeah. Check in. And yeah, I mean, communication really is the ultimate, like, you know, be present, self-aware, cultivate self-awareness and communicate with the person that you're with, you know? Yeah. I feel like it's, that's one area where I feel pretty confident, like that, because I'm a very self-aware person. I also have very high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
I'm very good at reading people. I'm a good communicator. But I'm not like an over communicator either. I'm not like, you know, like one of those weirdos. So, yeah, so I feel like I'm lucky in that department, but like I've heard from female friends and even male friends who are not as good of communicating. Like, you know, I'm like, I hear stories from both sides, you know, that just continually reaffirm what I've experienced in my own life and what I've gleaned from like sex experts that I've communicated with. Communication is like the key. It's the key. Communication is lubrication, to quote my friend Emily Morse.
Yes.
Yeah, it's super important.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming today. It's been such a beautiful convein.
Yeah, it's been so fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I loved when because this almost didn't happen when you were like driving over. It was like, yeah, let's do this.
No, definitely. Yeah, I love going into different territories, you know, because I find that generally like I can talk about nutrition till the cows come home. Like that's just my passion and I love it so much. But yeah, I'm more than that. So thank you, Layla, for giving me the platform and the space, holding space for, you know, for for more than that. This was really fun.
And where can people tune into your podcast? Because I know that's the main thing you're doing right now.
Yeah. So my podcast is called The Genius Life, and it's primarily like a fitness, nutrition, hormone health, women's health, fat loss podcast. And we cater to people from all different backgrounds. So we've got a huge like lay audience, people that aren't in the healthcare industry, but also we do like get a lot of medical doctors that listen to the show and dietitians and things like that. So, I think we strike a balance like really nicely between like being pretty, like being high level enough where every episode is like pretty actionable, but then, we also get into the nitty gritty as well, like the scientific detail.
Yeah. And honestly, all that information and knowledge like really adds up over a lifetime, because I've really felt the improvement in my health and fitness from learning so much more, even getting into all of the different like, understanding of the science and the neurobiology and even the biohacking and all of that. I was kind of like, oh, I'm healthy enough. And as I've actually optimized my health, I'm like, holy shit, like I'm aging backwards. I feel amazing.
Yeah. I love it. That's awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. My pleasure to have you. And I'm so excited for everyone to check out your work.
Thank you so much, Layla.
Yo!
Boom.
So I wanted to take us deeper into this concept that me and Max started discussing, which is sometimes when you love someone very, very deeply and the love between you is true and profound and transformative, you can get scared. You can actually be afraid of that level of love. And we don't always think of it that way because we tend to think of only the fairy tale version of love, where you fall in love and if it's the right person, everything goes amazing and you're super into each other and this fairy tale unfolds. But there is this other aspect, which is that many of us got the experience in childhood of love not being safe, that we couldn't love and be whole, or the people that we loved could hurt us, or we could love someone and they could abandon us, or we could love someone and they could try and manipulate or control us because of our love for them. So many of us have some level of fear of very, very deep love. And especially for those of us who struggle to create a kind of partnership that we know would suit us, that we know would support us to thrive, it really helps to ask, what inside of me pushes away love? What inside of me is afraid of love? And when we go deeper into ourselves, we can start to explore these hidden mechanisms that keep us from the deepest love and intimacy in our partnerships. And so one of the things that I would invite you to do, a practical application of this, is whenever you have a story about someone, a judgmental thought, a feeling that you want to push them away, instead of always believing the surface story, I invite you to take a breath, feel into your body, and feel, what am I feeling underneath my story about them? And what this does is it allows you to stop projecting and believing your projections, your stories about the person in front of you, and invites you to feel underneath into what's actually going on for you. So every story or projection about someone else says more about us than it does about them. So let's say I'm having a belief about someone like, I don't want to be around them. Well, I might take a moment, breathe into my body and feel. And I might notice that I actually just don't feel safe with them. I don't want to be with them right now. And then I can honor that truth inside of myself without making it a story about them, like they suck or they're not good enough or anything like that. And I can just own, like, I don't feel safe. I don't want to be here right now. I don't want to spend time with this person. That's self-honoring rather than projecting. Sometimes when you're in a strong story about someone, like you want to push them away, they're not good enough, I don't like this about them, I don't like that about them, and you take a deep breath inside of yourself and you really feel, you can actually feel a pain body, a fear of love, or a sadness around love. And this is an indication that the pushing away is actually a protective mechanism. It's a part of you that wants to push away love. And the reason why it's good to start to train yourself when you have a judgmental thought about someone else to stop, take a deep breath, and feel what's going on with you is because sometimes underneath is a signal in your nervous system that's telling you something true and real that you want to follow, to not be around that person, to not be in that relationship. But instead of making it a projection about them, a story about them, you could just own that truth in yourself. It's far more powerful. And when we learn to stop ourselves and pause when we're judging someone else or projecting onto someone else and breathe into our body, into our nervous system and feel what we're feeling, sometimes that shows us this signature inside of us where we're actually running from intimacy and love, where we're actually running from someone who can love us, see us, hold us, connect with us. And because we are so terrified of that level of love inside, we'll actually push it away. And the only way to know what you're actually doing is to be less attached to your story about the person that you're relating with and more interested in the underlying feelings, sensations, and energetic signature inside your nervous system. What's going on for you? And the less you can make it about them, the more you can make it about you, the more clear you'll be, the more in your truth you'll be, the less you'll blame or shame or make up a story about someone else, and the more you can just own how you feel, what's real and true for you. And for those of you running from love, and I feel you and see you because I've done it so many times myself, you can start to feel when it's you contorting and trying to run from something beautiful and healthy. Because when you were young, that beautiful, healthy, intimate love was not safe. And so your system will actually try and run from what is good and beautiful and true for you. You can only start to realize that when you go deeper inside of yourself, when you start to listen beyond the outside presenting story. Now, this is just the start of a much deeper process of coming home to yourself, feeling yourself, knowing yourself, being less in a story about others and more deeply connected at home into yourself. But this is a powerful first start. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to this Tantric Life. Thank you for making it to the end of a podcast. That is an accomplishment. And if you want to learn more, if you want practical tools and guidance in Tantra and sacred sexuality, then head on over to laylamartin.com, sign up with your email address. You're probably like, email, what is this, 1996? Let me tell you, my emails are special. They're also so not safe for work that we send them on Sundays because they are chock full of some of the most licentious education that you are ever going to find. So I share in-depth tantric trainings, practical tools that you can incorporate into your life every single day. I also talk about really embarrassing and shocking moments from my own life as I guinea pig this entire tradition for myself in my own life. And if you want to stay connected, that is the way to stay connected. We also have incredible resources there. So if you want to learn sex magic, breath work, couple sex practices, tantric sexuality on the website, you can get those trainings for free if you head over and check it out, laylamartin.com. Finally, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. Don't miss a single reel. That's at the Layla Martin. You can also follow me on YouTube to make sure you don't miss any of these podcasts. That is Layla Martin. And thank you once again so much for being here. I can't wait to share more with you.